Hey guys, this is Chelsea. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do our monthly media wrap-up for March, and March was Women's History Month, so I'll be reviewing films that were directed by women, and then we'll go into TV, and then finally books. For the movies, I did get through 4 of them, which is pretty nice for me. And just if you guys haven't seen my previous videos, I'm only going to be expressing my opinion. I'm not going to be rating any of the things that I've consumed or that I've watched for this month. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Our first movie was called Reality, and it was made in 2023. You can find it on HBO Max. The star of the show is Miss Sydney Sweeney. I don't really know her work that well, so I was interested to see what her acting chops are and to kind of just see what her work is. This was directed by Miss Tina Sater, and she also did a play by the same name. So I didn't really know the story beforehand, which was really nice. I just kind of went into it very blind. But this is based on a true story of a woman named Reality Winner who worked for the National Security Agency. And in 2016, I believe, she exposed that Russia did help with the Trump election. So it's just about her finding this document that was supposed to be classified, obviously, but she took it out of the building and she submitted it to a US publication, and about a month later, FBI showed up at her home and interrogated her about this matter. I really liked this movie because I love movies that are just set in one location with just very few characters. That to me feels like very insular, and a lot more can happen in that, really confined space. And it was very play-like to me, obviously because she had to play beforehand, but it was just very theatrical in that way. And I really liked that it was very heavily based on the dialogue of the actual transcript from the FBI, like from the actual camera footage that they had. So it was really cool to see just it play out exactly how it played out on that day when she was being interrogated. So Sydney Sweeney, as I said, I don't really know her work that well, but I really thought she did really well in this movie. She has very, very expressive facial features, and so her expressions really helped carry me through the movie, and I felt like her anxiety and her anticipation, but it also seemed like she kind of knew what was coming and she kind of knew what was going to happen to her, because obviously you're not supposed to expose that information, So like I said, it was based heavily off the dialogue from the FBI transcript, and so what I really liked about it was when there was a part in the dialogue or the transcript that was redacted, the film mirrored that very well. Either Miss Sater would remove the person from the scene entirely, or she would scramble the scene to make it look like it was kind of being redacted in a way. And that was really interesting to me. I haven't seen that before ever, so that was really cool to see. So I was really intrigued throughout the entire film, and I found myself wondering if it was actually true or not, but I held off until the movie was over to actually look it up to see if it was real. And I think that's really a testament to the acting in this film as well. It was very dramatic, but there was also a lot of pauses and a lot of silence, which kind of held the intensity a little bit more for me. And like I said, it all took place in just her house. So we follow her from outside, then we go inside and we see the whole interrogation take place. But we also see how her mind is kind of working, and how the security agents obviously know the whole story, but they're just trying to get her to pull out some more pieces. And you can see her kind of break down, but also have her guard up in a lot of ways. And it's because it's a movie that I think that I will watch some more of Sydney Sweeney's acting. I know she was in Euphoria as well, but I haven't seen that either. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Reality. And next up we have Nyad, which is on Netflix. It came out last year, and it stars Jodie Foster and Annette Bening. And I love Jodie Foster. She's one of my favorite actresses of all time. I really just think that her body of work is really impressive, and I love seeing her grow and evolve throughout her career, and it was really cool to see her in this movie. This is also a true story, and it's based off a woman named Diana Nyad. And in 2010, she succeeded in swimming from Florida to Cuba, unassisted. She didn't have a shark cage or anything. She just swam in the ocean, exposed to the elements. And I didn't know this before, but this is directed by Jimmy Chen and Elizabeth Vossarelli. They are a husband-wife duo director couple, and they both also directed Free Solo. I cried multiple times throughout this movie, mostly because of the relationship that they had, and their friendship was just really inspiring. And also, Nyad is a tough bitch. Seriously, she was 64 when she did this swim, and she tried it multiple times because the first couple times she ran into some, she's out in the middle of the ocean, so she ran into some box jellyfish, and they are very, very venomous, and so she had to recover from that and then recover in the hospital and come back and do the swim again. So just really inspiring and really empowering. And she's also like very selfish at some points and very stubborn, but she found people who believed in her cause, and her whole project and her whole cause just became bigger than her as a person. And it was really nice to see like the team effort and her finding all the people who would help her along the way. It was just like all the pieces that they put together was just really cool to see. And there's also the actual documentary on Netflix as well. So they did a documentary, but this is like the dramatized version of that. And I guess her swim is pretty controversial because it was publicized as an unassisted swim, but she did have help putting on like her jellyfish suit, for example, and she had some like cream that she had to put on her shoulder from the friction of her swimsuit. And so people were saying that it's not technically unassisted, but I mean, I could not do 110 miles swim in the ocean, you know? So whatever, you know, controversies around that, she did her swim, she made it from shore to shore, and she tried multiple times, like I said, so she really believed in herself and she just refused to give up. And that was really what kind of inspired me about this film the most. Next up, we have Priscilla by Miss Sofia Coppola, and this came out last year as well, and you can find it on HBO Max. So this movie, I mean, I do love Sofia Coppola. I think that she does a really good job of showing women on film, like very feminine and ethereal, and she just shoots them in a very beautiful way. But I do feel like the pacing in Coppola's films can be like really good at sometimes because it's like calming and you're just like kind of in the moment, but also I feel like there are some parts where it got kind of like lolly or like kind of boring for me. But I didn't really realize that Priscilla and Elvis met like at a very, very wide age gap. He was 24 and she was only 14 when they first met in Germany. Her parents were stationed there. And you could see like the parents' hesitation to like letting her see a guy who's so much older than her. But she like really kind of like latched on, and they seemed to be like really close, and that was uncomfortable for me to watch. It was really hard for me to get past that age gap. So that was like my main focus through the first half of the movie. But this is based off Miss Presley's memoir, I should say. It's called Elvis and Me. So I really liked seeing this story from her eyes solely, because I know that Elvis is obviously like this cultural icon, but I feel like we know a lot about him and we don't really know about like the people in his periphery, the people like in his life in general. And so I really liked seeing it from her eyes and from her perspective. And it was interesting to see like Coppola capture the loneliness that was in this film and how she like moved to Graceland, and she was very young, like I said, and just to see how maybe she didn't know what she was getting herself into. Like her life seemed to be very much for him and very centered around his career. And that does, you know, work for a lot of couples, obviously, but she was so young and she hadn't really lived her life yet, and she moved to a new school. She didn't really have a whole lot of friends, it seemed. So it seemed like a very isolating life, and I think she, being like Sofia Coppola, captured that really well. So Elvis was played by Jacob Elordi, and he did a really good job of really capturing the inner turmoil and the inner turbulence that is Elvis, and how he, you know, fame and his addiction issues, like all of that inner turmoil was really captured very well. And he looked very much like Elvis, I would say, so they casted that pretty well. And Priscilla was played by Kaylee Spaney, and she really evolved a lot throughout the film. I really saw her as like this, you know, small 14-year-old girl, and she kind of grew into this woman who was able to stand up for herself and take life into her own hands. And I haven't actually read that memoir, but I think that would be kind of cool to see, just to see like what her perspective was from being with this very, you know, famous cultural icon. And the last film we're going to talk about is Past Lives. This is on Paramount Plus. It came out last year. This is the feature directorial debut for Miss Celine Song, and it's an A24 production. And if you know A24, it's very like vibey, I would say, and it's kind of like a lot of panning shots, like establishing panning shots, and it feels very voyeuristic in that way because it feels like you're watching from the outside, but that also makes it feel like very real in a way, which is really cool about this film. So we follow two childhood friends, Na Young and Hae Sung. They meet when they're pretty young, I think around like 9, I would say they kind of look like, and Na Young moves to Canada, and then she eventually immigrates to America. And so they lose track of each other for a long time. I think they said 12 years in the film, and they reconnect again via Skype. And from here, they kind of rekindle their friendship, but it also feels like very romantic in a way because they're talking all the time, and they have like very long Skype conversations. He's taking her like out in Seoul to like see the tower and stuff, so it's just like a very intimate relationship. And eventually Na Young cuts it off because she has ambition and she wants to go for her dreams, and she feels like this friendship is like sort of holding her back in a way. And so they depart for a while, and during this time she gets married, and then he comes to New York and they meet up again. And so I really just fell in love with this movie. Like the first 10 minutes, I was immediately in love with these characters, especially Na-young. She's like very determined and very fierce, but she's also like very soft and very kind. And he kind of brings out this side in her. And it's really beautiful to like be friends with someone who you've known since childhood. I feel like they sort of know the core of who you are and know that inner piece of you. And that's something that you kind of carry throughout your life, I feel. And it was really beautiful to see their relationship grow from there. But it was also cool because this movie didn't really have a whole lot of physical affection or like a lot of spice, I guess people say. So it was very wholesome in that way and very innocent. But it was also really cool because some of it takes place in New York, and I feel like a lot of movies that I feel I see in New York is kind of like an extra character. But in this movie, it felt like New York was in the background, and we were really just focused on these two people and the relation that they built together. So I really enjoyed that sort of like lightness and that sort of clarity that we got to see from them sort of reconnecting in this beautiful city of New York. But yeah, I feel like the acting in this movie was just top tier. I really felt the chemistry between these two, and I really enjoyed seeing their relationship evolve throughout the entire movie. And I really didn't want it to end. Like as soon as it ended, I was like, no, I want to keep watching. I just want to see like where these people take their lives and where they go. I feel like this movie had like a lot of different pieces and a lot of different nuance in it with these people's lives, and they all like very, very much like meshed together, because when Na-young was with Hae-sung, like he's Korean and she's like more of a Korean American, she said in the movie. And she said that when she felt like she was with him, she was like more Korean. And so there's like this sort of romance with different countries as well, and like how those also meld together. So Celine just like did a really good job of making this very multi-layered and very nuanced, but also it came together in such a beautiful way. Okay, now we're gonna get to the TV shows. I only watched one from beginning to end, and that was Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix. I have not seen the original at all. I know that's kind of like bad of me, but I really did like this version, and I really did like the world building, because like I said, I haven't seen it before, so I didn't have a whole lot of context. But basically, if you guys don't know, we follow a little boy named Aang, and he is the last airbender, and he lives in a world where there are 4 different sections of the world, I guess you could say, and there's earth, air, fire, water, and these people some people have the ability to manipulate the elements: earth, air, fire, water. He's a last airbender, and so he and his friends are coming up against the Fire Nation, and so it's about them going to battle, but also Aang is trying to figure out what his powers are and what his capabilities are. So Aang is played by Gordon Cormier, Katana is played by Kia Wintillo, and Sokka is played by Ian Ousley. And they come along with him on this journey to defeat the Fire Nation, basically. So watching this did make me want to go back and watch the original. I heard the original is much more emotional and much more like visually interesting, and so I would like to go and see that, because I feel like there's like a lot of episodes to watch, and in this Netflix version there's only 8. So while they did do a very good job of like doing the world building and bringing us through, I do feel like there's a lot that I missed. So I would like to see what I missed, basically. And the spirituality, I feel like, helped them become better people, and I also really liked that a lot about the show, is that Aang, his greatest power was his compassion and like his big heart, and that wasn't seen as a weakness in the show, which I feel like is not the case in the real world. You know, people really just look down on those who are really emotional and who are more like connected with their emotions and their spirituality. So I really liked seeing that was not a weakness in the show. And it was just visually interesting. I mean, Netflix put in the production value, definitely. Like the special effects and all the animals and the scenery was just very rich and alive in that way. The first 2 episodes, it was kind of like slow to get the chemistry between the 3 of them, but as the show went on, it became more enriching, and I feel like their friendship really grew, and their banter was really good, and I feel like it became like even more humorous along the way. So just go past the first 2 episodes, and it will like start to pick up a little bit. And finally, we come to the books. I completed 2. I started the Hawthorne Legacy. This was very big on TikTok, and it's about a woman named Avery, or I should say a girl. She's in high school. A girl named Avery, and she inherits $1 billion, I think, or actually probably more than that. She inherits a lot of money, but it's from a guy that she doesn't know at all. And so she has to figure out who this guy is, why he gave her the money. And a part of her inheritance, like the stipulation, is that she has to live in the house for a full year. And if you can imagine living in a house with like his family who don't like that she got all this money and they got a lot less. So, and it's also like a lot of games and puzzles to figure out why he picked her. Tobias Hawthorne is the man who left her the money. And so like the first book I loved because the chapters are really short and the pacing was just like very, very fast. However, I found that the second book, it was a lot about the lineage of the family, and that kind of like got a little bit boring for me. And I'm on the third book now, and we still haven't quite figured out why she was selected. But this is kind of my fault because I don't really like series in general. I just don't like the sort of delayed gratification that comes with them. So I am going to continue because I want to figure out like why all this happened, obviously. I think there's actually one more book after the third one, so we'll see if I read that one or not. I don't know. But right now it's kind of in a lull. However, I do find the story to be intriguing overall, and I really love like mystery game short sort of books, so that's really what's carried me through at this point right now. But yeah, that is my wrap up for March. Thank you for watching. I'm currently watching Monk, if you guys have ever seen that show. There's like, I think 6 seasons, so I'm just slowly going through that as like a comfort show for right now. But next up for April, I'm hoping to see Monkey Paw, which is the new Dev Patel movie. He directs it and he's also in it, and I love Dev Patel, so I'm excited to see that. But yeah, I will see you guys next month. Have a good rest of your day.